ever kill a houseplant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, me too. And I always tell myself, this time will be different, this time I'll keep it alive. But then a week later, droopy brown leaves.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. But you know what I've noticed? It seems like a lot of people, especially kind of our generation, are getting into houseplants and gardening lately.
Yeah, it's definitely a trend.
And I totally get it. I find it really relaxing.
Yeah.
But without that like innate green thumb, it can be tough to know what your plants need.
For sure. And that's where I think this whole idea of Agrio is so interesting. It's like having a plant expert on call 24/7.
Right. And not just any expert, but like an AI-powered one, which sounds kind of futuristic and maybe a little intimidating. So today we are doing a deep dive into Agrio, how it works, what its potential is, and if it really lives up to the hype. We've got some really cool articles for this one, breaking down the technology, the impact it could have on agriculture, and even a first-hand account from a teenager who uses it to help with her garden. So let's jump in.
First things first, Agrio is not just another plant identifier app. Right.
No, not at all. It's way more than that. Think about how like an agronomy student would learn to diagnose plant problems. They study textbooks, right?
Right.
Look at tons of pictures of diseases and learn to recognize those patterns. Agrio's AI is doing the same thing. But on a much larger scale, it's analyzing thousands of images every single day, constantly learning and refining its ability to identify even the most subtle signs of trouble. Wow, so it's like mirroring how a human learns, but at warp speed.
Exactly.
I read somewhere that it can analyze a photo in seconds.
Yeah, it's incredibly fast.
That's amazing. Okay, so it can identify problems, but what about solutions? One thing that really stood out to me about Agrio is its focus on sustainable solutions.
Absolutely. And that's a really important point. It's not just about slapping a label on a problem.
Right.
It's about offering solutions that are in line with like eco-conscious practices.
I like that.
So instead of immediately recommending a chemical pesticide, Agrio might suggest introducing beneficial insects or using a homemade insecticidal soap. It's about working with nature, not against it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we try to do that in our own lives, so why not with our plants, right?
Exactly.
So it's like a holistic approach to plant care, which I really appreciate. So it's more than just telling you if your plant has a disease, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It can get really specific.
Like how specific are we talking?
Well, the articles mention that it can actually differentiate between diseases that look really similar.
Oh, wow.
Like, you know how sometimes you see discoloration on a leaf?
Yeah.
That could be so many different things.
Right.
But Agrio can actually pinpoint the exact cause.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And what makes it even more powerful is that it takes into account a lot of different factors.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, just like a human expert would.
Mm-hmm.
Agrio considers things like your location,
Okay.
the weather patterns in your area,
Makes sense.
all that stuff.
So it's not just looking at the plant in isolation.
Exactly. It's like putting together a puzzle.
I see. And using all those clues to get the most accurate diagnosis.
Exactly.
So it's really like having a detective on the case.
I like that analogy. It's very fitting.
Because there's all these little details that could be important.
Right, and this is actually a good point to bring up remote sensing.
Okay.
You know those satellite images that show crop health from above?
Yeah, like a bird's eye view of the field.
Exactly. So remote sensing has its limitations.
In what way?
Well, it can show you where a field is struggling,
Okay.
but it can't always tell you why.
I see.
It's like seeing a symptom, but not knowing the underlying cause.
Makes sense.
And that's where Agrio comes in. It bridges that gap between the aerial view
Yeah.
and what's actually happening on the ground.
Right, because you still need that boots on the ground perspective.
Exactly. And Agrio empowers users to be those boots on the ground.
So the more people use it, the smarter it gets.
Exactly. It's like a continuous feedback loop.
That's really cool. Okay, so we've talked about Agrio's diagnostic abilities, but what about the advice it gives? From what I understand, it goes beyond just telling you what's wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's where this new chatbot, Harvey, comes in.
Yeah, Harvey is super interesting.
I read that it's designed to feel like you're having a conversation with a real plant expert,
That was my impression too.
which sounds really helpful.
It is.
Yeah.
Because it allows for that back and forth.
Hmm.
You can ask clarifying questions,
Okay.
provide more details about your specific situation.
So it's not just spitting out generic advice.
No, not at all. Harvey takes all the information you've given it,
Yeah.
including the image you uploaded, your location,
Yeah.
the plant's history, and uses all of that to provide tailored recommendations.
It's like having your own personal plant doctor on call whenever you need them.
Exactly. And the best part is you don't have to wait for an appointment.
Right. Just snap a picture and you're good to go. Speaking of which, our sources included this great story about a teenage gardener named Lily who used Agrio to, I'm just going to quote this here, transform a small patch of land into a vegetable garden.
That's awesome.
I know, right?
Yeah,
And what I love about Lily's story is that she was a total newbie when she started out. Like, she even admitted to being a little skeptical of the whole AI thing at first.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. But then she ran into a couple of common gardening problems. And that's when she decided to give Agrio a try. Her tomatoes, for example, started looking kind of pale and sad,
Yeah, that's a classic sign of nutrient deficiency.
which Agrio correctly diagnosed.
Yeah.
And get this, instead of recommending some harsh chemical fertilizer,
Which can be bad for the environment, by the way,
exactly,
and your plants in the long run.
Agrio suggested using organic compost, which is way better for the soil and the environment.
And for the taste of your tomatoes.
That too. So Lily gave it a try, and guess what?
Her tomatoes made a comeback.
They did. They bounced back beautifully. But then she faced another challenge. You know how cucumbers are prone to getting that powdery mildew?
Oh yeah, like their arch nemesis.
Right. Well, Lily's cucumbers got hit with it. But once again, Agrio came to the rescue.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
I know, right? It's like having a superpower in your pocket. So Agrio identified the powdery mildew and even suggested a few natural remedies, like using a baking soda spray.
Which is a classic trick, and it actually works.
It does. I've used it myself. And Lily had the same success. She said, and I quote, "Before long, my cucumber plant rebounded, and fresh, healthy cucumbers began to dangle from their vines."
That's the dream right there.
Seriously, a garden full of healthy, delicious produce. And it all started with a simple photo and a little help from AI.
It's amazing to think about how accessible this kind of technology is becoming.
I know, right? Like anyone with a smartphone can potentially have a green thumb now.
Exactly, and that's a really powerful thing, because it's not just about having a thriving garden.
It's about connecting with nature,
Absolutely.
understanding where our food comes from.
And feeling empowered to make more sustainable choices.
Exactly. So to wrap things up, it seems like Agrio isn't just some passing fad. It's a potential game changer in the world of gardening and beyond.
I totally agree.
It puts expert knowledge right at our fingertips. It encourages sustainable practices. And as Lily's story shows, it actually delivers results.
I'm really impressed with what I've learned about Agrio today.
Me too. And it makes you wonder what other fields could benefit from this kind of technology.
Oh, absolutely. The possibilities are endless.
Right. Like imagine AI that could help us diagnose medical conditions or identify environmental threats.
Or even just help us learn new things faster and more effectively.
It's an exciting time to be alive, that's for sure.
It really is.
And with that, I think we've done our deep dive on Agrio for today. But we want to hear from you. Have you tried Agrio? What do you think of this whole AI-powered plant care thing? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of tech and science.